Good afternoon, welcome. This is Media Center in Ukraine Forum, and now we will talk about the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly session. Yevheniia Kravchuk is Deputy Chair of the Verkhovna Rada's Humanitarian Information Policy Committee. Ms. Yevheniia, the floor is yours. So what results will this session generate? Thank you, colleagues, for being interested. The parliamentary session of OSCE had a session in Birmingham in the UK, the first parliamentary assembly session in more than 2 years' time. Because of the COVID, there were no physical sessions before. And this session has been dedicated to Ukraine, Russia's war against Ukraine, namely. There were 3 resolutions passed that directly impact the Russians' aggression against Ukraine. The first and most important resolution is a joint authorship of our delegation of Ukraine, the US delegation, and Lithuania. 3 texts were combined into one resolution entitled Aggression of the Russian Federation and Impact on the Security of the OSCE countries. It's quite clear that since 2014 we had quite a number of such resolutions, including Parliamentary Assembly, but the peculiarity here is that OSCE represents not only the EU countries, all of the EU countries have their delegations there, but also the US and Canada are there, and these are our closest partners, and we have close ties with them, and we're trying to use the toughest language in such resolutions. The Russian delegation and the delegation of Belarus were not there. They were not handed out visas because Great Britain, all of the Russian's parliament, Gosduma, or if you can call it parliament, Belarus parliament, all of those are on the sanctions lists, and they are not allowed entry to Great Britain. The second resolution dealt with the protection of journalists who operate under the conditions of military conflicts. John Whittingale, the UK former Ministry of Information and Sports, so he's being instrumental in this. And the third resolution from Polish colleagues on humanitarian consequences of this war of Russia against Ukraine. Which provisions in this Birmingham resolution that we can use later on? First of all, it's written down that the Parliamentary Assembly of OSCE urges to establish special international tribunal. We have added this in the PARE resolution, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, which allows our Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Justice to have additional arguments in the negotiations in creating such an international tribunal, which would be prosecuting the Russian military criminals. According to the statistics of the Prosecutor General Office, more than 21,000 military crimes have been documented at the territories where we have access to. Because if you look at everything that has been perpetrated at the temporarily occupied territories, I believe such figures will be increased a couple of times. Everything the Russian Federation is doing in Ukraine could be treated not only as war crimes, but also as a genocide. A couple of countries, Canada, Ireland, Baltic countries, have passed their resolutions in their parliaments stating that they believe it's a clear case of genocide. Also, destruction of cultural heritage, which is intentional, and that the Russians are stealing the works from Melitopol, Kherson, and others. At our meetings with the British counterparts, with their foreign ministry people, I raised this issue of earmarked help to restore the cultural heritage. And the territories that are currently occupied, this will happen after they're being liberated, but we already have some territories where you can already start doing the restoration. The last but not the least, intrigue of this resolution, what could be done to exclude Russia, at least the Russian delegation. And we managed to push this issue because OSCE doesn't have a mechanism to neither to exclude a country from the membership nor the parliamentary delegation. In Parliamentary Assembly, we managed to get the Russians out of the assembly completely. Well, we need to have an instrument. Well, in October in Sofia, it will be voted, making changes into the procedure for Parliamentary Assembly. The Standing Committee will have to pass on this. That consists of the heads of the delegations and the Assembly members to vote for the following change. If a member country perpetrates aggression against another member country, then the Bureau of the Parliamentary Assembly can pass the decision to discontinue the mandate of such delegations. So come October, we will be fighting to throw the Russians out of the Parliamentary Assembly of OSCE. Also, there were separate meetings in the British Parliament. It just happened so that on the day of Boris Johnson's dismissal, we had meeting in the in both of the chambers with Labourists and Conservatives, and I'm passing the request of the British colleagues to pass a clear message to the Ukrainians. There will be no change in the support by British to Ukraine. Only in terms of its being strengthened. That's it. The position of the UK on Ukraine is similar, bipartisan. Ukraine needs to be supported as long as it takes to impose severe sanctions against Russia, provide military assistance first of all, and financial assistance as well. So here we don't have to feel constrained, because in the Western democracies there is an institutional memory. This is the choice of the country, and this choice has been made in favor of Ukraine. Is our understanding correct that it's going to be difficult to exclude Russia from the OSCE Assembly because it could veto this decision? Well, it's all about whether Russian and Belarusian delegations will be allowed to attend the Assembly's session in Sofia. There's information, hasn't been supported officially yet, but still, there will be boycott if Russians are allowed in. So I hope the mechanisms will be found to vote for this decision. The problem is that Russia could exercise pressure on their satellites from Asian countries. Let me not point fingers right now, so that they would still have a chance not to fall under the Russians' coercion, but still about 5 delegations might get text messages from the Russian counterparts. We tried to share this message that if the Parliamentary Assembly fails to exclude Russia from its membership, then it will be poor message for the organization, because there will be boycott for sure, which will place under doubt the viability of this organization at large. So speaking about the OSCE as not the Parliamentary Assembly, even the coordination office stopped its work because Russia imposed veto. The monitoring mission stopped its work in March. So Russia disintegrates this organization. So unless we are able to somehow counter it, it will lose the sense for existence, and the countries will lose interest in participating in the work of the organization that could do nothing. We met with Helga Schmidt, and she promised that she will find other sources of funding that Russia would fail to block. The OSCE projects will continue the work in Ukraine, but nobody could launch the monitoring mission if veto is imposed. There is also a fear that Russia could block all of the monitoring missions by the end of the year in other countries. Well, if they want to, and that's a problem. And this right of veto by one country is something that has been discussed not only in the OECD but also in the United Nations Security Council. There are problems. So we recognize that the monitoring mission of OSCE until its next time will not come back to Ukraine. I just don't see the mechanisms that would allow for OSCE to pass this decision of overstepping the veto from Russia. The coordination office that could work on various project support of the freedom of speech, other projects that OSCE could keep working on. So we can find funds from other budgets. That's it. Thanks a lot, colleagues. Your questions, please. Use the mic. Irina Kožuchar, Ukrinform. Tell us more about the protection of journalists. The resolution itself was dedicated to Ukraine and to the work of journalists. It's being mentioned that 8 journalists have died while doing their jobs. Of course, they criticize Russia there. And in my speech, I also said that in the time of war, Russia against Ukraine, if you have press written on your body armor, it makes a journalist targets. The Russians are afraid of the truth, and the resolution stated that the journalist documents military crimes, and there is the request to all of the journalists to protect their journalists who work in hot spots. But in all of those resolutions on humanitarian catastrophe, on the rights of the journalists that they're being killed at war, we come back to the first reason. If we don't put stop to Russia, then the violations of the human rights will continue one way or another. Humanitarian catastrophe at the temporarily occupied territories will continue. First and foremost, we need to stop Russia, and it could be stopped only by providing military assistance, financial assistance to Ukraine, so it could win this war. Thanks a lot. Further questions? Viktor Melnikov, CGTN. Can you tell us, please, have you analyzed how the political crisis in the Great Britain will affect the work of the OSCE? This is the topic that is very much on the radar of the Ukrainians. The change in the personality of the Prime Minister will not change the position of the UK government. I am already reading the statements of the candidates, And when they say, well, I want to become the leader of the Conservative Party, which would automatically, according to the system, be equivalent of being elected, they state their clear and unequivocal position. So the MPs asked me to pass the clear message. The UK will support Ukraine regardless of the name of a person who is the head of the government. It doesn't even depend on the name of the party, ruling party. The ruling party would always get the opposition Labour Party's support in passing the needed laws, allocating funds. So they claim that there will be no doubt in further support of Ukraine, but still we're grateful to Boris Johnson that from the very beginning he had a very clear position. He was quite vocal. He was talking about this position quite vocally, and we hope that Great Britain will continue to be the leader in terms of sanctions and military assistance as well. Thanks a lot. That was Yevheniia Kravchuk, the MP of Ukraine. Thank you for joining us, friends. Thank you for being with us. Keep track of our announcements. Right now, our team prepares the agenda for tomorrow. Stay with us. Thank you.
Так, що ніхто про канал Ахметова не запитав?